welcome back to Asian Pulse. I'm your host, Shivangni Naiker, and thank you for tuning in to your informative and educational network. December 1st is World AIDS Day. This is also a United Nations declaration. With all the research being done, not too many men and women are dying from AIDS. The 16 days of activism is now from November 25th to December 10th on the International Day of Human Rights. During these 16 days, every day, women serving agencies bring awareness and education of prevention of gender-based violence. And on December 6th is International Day for Elimination of All Forms of Violence Against Women. This UN declaration started when 14 women, engineering students, were gunned down at the Polytech University in Montreal. This was the biggest massacre in Canada. Our thoughts and prayers to those who are suffering from the climate change in BC, in Merritt, Abbotsford, and Chilliwack. So many homes and livestock are lost due to the flooding, and many people are still displaced in the community centers and churches. To donate for the cause, give your generous donation to the Canadian Red Cross at 604-522-7092. I'll be right back from these words from our sponsors.
Buying or selling a house is a difficult process. Get Brent Prakash from Saba Realty Limited to find you your dream home, whether it's your first house, upgrading, or investment property. Always at your service with a fast, friendly, and honest opinion, Brent Prakash will guide you through the entire process. Get in touch with him today for a free, no-obligation consultation at 778-840-5866. I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated. I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated.
Community Outreach Pharmacy, providing in-home pharmacy services.
This includes our specialized diabetes and blood pressure monitoring program,
Free blister packing, free deliveries, and an in-home injection service throughout the whole Lower Mainland.
Call us at 604-777-5601 for more information.
In our studios, it's my pleasure to introduce two very powerful women in the women's organization that has been doing this work for past over 20 years. And today, what we are here to talk about, 16 days of activism. As you all know, since November 25th to December 10th, it's called 16 days of activism. And during that time, different organizations, different women's movement, they do event to bring awareness on gender-based violence. And it ends on 10th of December, which is a Human Rights Day. So these women are here who have done marvelous work for a long, long time in our community to talk about gender-based violence. And in next couple of days, December 6th is coming, and December 6th is the International Day of Elimination of All Forms of Violence Against Women. That was the day when 14 women were gunned down in Montreal in 1989. It's been a long time. It doesn't matter how long that is, but those were the engineering students at Polytech in the Montreal University. So with that, welcome both of you. Welcome Shehnaz Rahman. She is the Executive Director of Surrey Women's Center. And next to her is Nina Randhawa. She is the manager at Harmony House and also the board of director with BC Society of Transition Homes or Houses. So they, as an organization, they look after all the transition homes in British Columbia. So, like, who else can we bring better than these two women in here to talk about gender-based violence? Welcome, both of you.
Thank you so much, Kamala.
So before we're going to talk about what we are here to talk about, just give you a little bit of a background about yourself so that people that are listening or watching you.
Sure. Nina, do you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm Nina, as Camilla you mentioned. Thank you so much for a great introduction. You're so inspiring, Camilla, yourself. So it's such a pleasure to be here. So my background, so I've been working in the field of domestic violence for almost 30 years now. I
Yes.
was in Richmond with Chimo Community Services before, doing outreach advocacy and looking after Transition House. Now I am with PICS, looking after the second stage house, which is called Harmony House. It's a place where women come and stay with us for almost a year, and where we help them, support and advocate so they can move on with their lives. They've all been through some pretty traumatic, experiences in their life, and we are all here, just to make it a little bit easier for them.
Thank you.
Yeah, just like Nina, I have actually been in the sector for about 28 years, so a little less than you. But it has been quite a journey. So I started my career in the women's sector by as a children who witness abuse counselor at
Yes.
Multicultural Family Support Services, and then basically moved on in doing provincial training and provincial coordination of 90 children who witness abuse programs across BC. And then I transitioned into West Coast Leaf, which is a women's rights organization. And currently I'm with the Surrey Women's Center, where our main goal is, our mandate is to increase safety for women that have experienced gender-based violence.
Wow. So let's get into that and talk a little bit about, because you both have been there almost 30 years. Looking back 30 years when you started in this movement, were there less women coming forward and talking about gender-based violence, or you have come to a point that due to education, awareness and all that, more and more women are fleeing domestic violence?
I would say that we have made great strides in 36 years. In this, from 1989, when you mentioned, we've made great strides in terms of raising awareness around the issue. So in early 90s, I recall there was a lot of stigma around domestic violence, especially in South Asian communities. People couldn't speak as much about it. What has happened is we have changed laws that have changed to protect women more. There are also collaborations with other ministries, like Ministry of Children and Families. And I think the awareness has raised, but yet, even 36 years later, we're in a place where a woman is killed every 6 days in Canada. So it tells us we have a lot more work to do still.
Yeah, and I just from my own experience, right, like I mentioned that I think earlier that one difference that I have seen, of course, the calls are a lot, it's so sad that waiting time for women to get into transition house or second stage is still so long, right? I really wish there should no one be on a waiting list on this situation when safety is a concern, right? But the difference that I have seen myself is, earlier, we would see a lot of time the women would come in when they were brought in by the police or school counselor or the hospital. Like, it has to go to that extent, for them to know. Now, I am seeing a lot of self-referrals. So I guess, Shaz, as you mentioned, with maybe, with the awareness and stuff. So people are coming out, and also, but we still have, long way to go, right? I really want this to be like, it should be a basic human right. Everyone should be living, violence-free. But at least, so a lot of people say, oh, you guys been doing this work for so long and still so many call. And I look at it the other way. Maybe it's more awareness, right? So women are not going to stay anymore, though they are speaking up. They want to come out and get out of those relationships, which is unhealthy.
Do you find there is awareness in the new immigrants, people that are moving to the country in relationship, or women that have been sponsored by their husbands to come to the country, that they end up in the transition house, or they end up coming out more so, or they are more women that have been born, raised, educated, all this awareness and all that, more so that way? Do you find that immigrant women are also coming out more?
In my experience, I find that, yes, violence is across all sectors,
Yes, of course.
newcomers or those that have stayed here. there are definitely more risk factors for new immigrants that are landing because they may not know about the laws of Canada or they may be less aware about the stigma. So definitely that puts them at further risk. And it's for that reason, like right now, the agencies such as, Harmony House or Surrey Women's Center are there to provide support to those. We feel that women with no status, often women that come in on a visitor's visa or, they are abused in a situation, that they are more at risk. There are more threats they feel that if they disclose violence, somehow it will affect their status in Canada or they will be removed. So I think there's still more opportunities for us to raise more protective factors to eliminate these risks for newcomers too.
Nina, I'll ask you that maybe there are a lot of women that come to this country as sponsored by their spouse and all that, and the fear, and those people that they are watching you today, and they may be living in that fear that if I get or say something, I will get deported. I'm not gonna be because the husband signs 3-year sponsorship for the women.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk a little bit about that. There is no such thing like that, that you will be deported once there is a violence in the relationship.
Yeah, great. I think that's a huge awareness that's still needed. A lot of, even till today, I get, people say, oh, the reason I didn't want to leave was because he sponsored me and I wanted to bring my family now.
Yes.
So leaving him means, that I won't be able to sponsor. One, I might not be able to stay, but also, a lot of these women want to sponsor their family. They're very alone. They want to have their mom or dad or their siblings to be, in this country. And the first thing we tell them, no, there is, either way, if you've sponsored someone, or, either sex who have sponsored, no one can deport, unless there is a criminal activity or something like that, right? When it goes into criminal law is a total different, but under family law, you cannot be deported. But I think one thing is, but the whole thing I always tell women is like, but staying in an abusive relationship is going to affect your mental health, it's going to affect your physical health. So let's first start looking after ourselves, and then of course being in country is important, but more than that, your own wellness is a huge thing as well, right? Which we see, I think, a lot of women who are immigrant women, lack of family, we see at Harmony House, like how their health is affected. And
Yes.
I am really trying to advocate like this abuse not only affect, like their whole mental and physical health. Like it's like a disease, right? And I think that's what we need to have a lens on, for the governments and other politicians to really take this serious. It is like a disease, just like a pandemic. Look how we were all so aware and we wanted to do it, similar with, I think, with any family, domestic violence. That's how we need to look at it, right? Like this is not a personal, private business, right?
Yeah.
Just like if in our neighbor, a couple's fighting, we say, oh, it's like, we don't take it that way, right? So I think we all need to change our lens on how we look at domestic violence.
Talking about pandemic, for last 22 months, we have been under pandemics, and a lot of women who have been doing frontline work and all that, they lost their jobs and all that. Now they are more homebound, taking care of the kids. Before they had that financial stability to take care of themselves and the family. Now they don't have that. Do you think that pandemic has also pushed the women away and into more violence so that they can get out? Because before they have some financial freedom. Now they don't even have that.
Right. When we look at violence against women or violence against individuals that are marginalized and vulnerable, we always see the risk factors. Pandemic has definitely added further risks to her safety because in the initial stages of pandemic, there was isolation, there was lockdown. These women were like basically trapped in homes that were violent, and home is not always a safe place for many women. So that basically added more risk to her. And we've seen the evolvement around how, like for instance, initially at Surrey Women's Center, when the lockdown happened, we didn't get as many calls as we normally would for help. And there was a drop initially. It of course picked up as things started improving. But what we saw is a lot of complexities around, as you mentioned, Kamala, that around income loss or even income loss for the spouse that added further stressors in the family and risk factors. So definitely it's multiplied. For Surrey Women's Center, pre-pandemic, we served around 13,000 women in 1 year. And just now we completed our reports, and we have served 7,000 more women. To an over 20,000 women was served through Surrey Women's Center in this whole past year of pandemic, which just shows that the need grew very much, and we were able to sort of match that need.
And I think looking at the reports and statistics from all the transition houses, yes, the curve has gone up. Again, very similar reason, women were staying home. Also, a lot of offices were closed, so lack of support also pushed, right? So women end up more in hospitals because that's where they were, the counseling offices were closed. A lot of these immigrant women, even when they go to get their English classes or they're getting out, that's their relief. This is their way of getting where now they were staying home, and escalation, right? Which should not be an excuse, but that's the fact. So of course.
And women are not able to see face to face, one on one. And doing online counseling is not the same. Yeah,
sure.
because you need to sit down with somebody that people can read your body language and be able to talk one to one. But on the phone, you cannot feel that.
Exactly.
It's
hard
not the
enough
same.
for even us, for us, like,
to
just
do it
being
well.
home and doing.
Yeah.
Just imagine, right, when you're already going through stress, and it's just another risk, another layer to it.
And I would add, just recently I heard, when we think about work from home, it seems like it may work for some folks well, but for women that are abused or oppressed or experiencing gender-based violence, it can become torture. We just heard from a woman that how her employment from work, like her laptop or any of those equipment that she needs, is either sabotaged or destroyed, and that impacts the employment directly. So there are just many other factors to manipulate,
Yes.
In those situations and dynamics too.
Shanaz, you have started with an organization called BC and Lower Mainland Multicultural Service Society as a counselor who witness violence, children who witness violence program. So talk a little bit about the impact of women living in an abusive relationship when children are there, and what kind of impact the kids have when they grow up to be an adult.
For sure. That's a really important piece. So just historically, when the violence against women issue was emerging, transition houses reported that often more children were coming in the houses than the women themselves. And they saw that how these children were presenting some of the behaviors of really trouble. So the credit for recognizing the impact of violence on children really goes to the transition houses that flagged this issue. And a lot of times women or mothers may feel that, well, the child is in the other room, he didn't see the violence, but just witnessing or just seeing the violence is not the only criteria. Children hear violence, children see the aftermath of violence. So if the mother is injured, if the mother is not able to go to work or not able to do the regular household tasks, that's all the impact a child would see. And how it affects children is, a lot of times children feel it's their fault. They may hear their names in the fight. They always, think it's their fault. And we see different, in my work at Multicultural, I saw that every child presented differently. Some children withdrew, became very shy, and went into, even as early as 11 or 12 years old, in depression. Whereas some children acted out and became, presented some of the behaviors that they were seeing at home. So it's really difficult for, it's an impact on the children, and that's why we are seeing now, like BC Society of Transition Houses, and organizations are creating programs like connecting schools with the children who witness abuse programs to raise awareness, because in every classroom there's definitely children that are still living with violence at home, and it's just a collective community response to that. But if parents understand, if neighbors and our social responses are of support to mothers, it makes things so much easier for her to make those decisions and feel supported in protecting the children.
Nina, you work at a women's shelter, and this is what we're talking about, because when at the transition house, when the mother goes with the child, so you also see the mother and the kids in there. What kind of impacts the kids have, and is there a behavioral changes with the children that have been through this journey with the mom?
Yeah, of course. So, Camilla, as you know, as you've also have experienced in this work, you know, a lot of time these women, when we're asking them if they're still living in a relationship that's not healthy, we say, oh, when we're giving them options of leaving and what they can, a lot of time they're like, oh, one of the biggest reason they want to stay is because of the children, right? And then a lot of time I always give them statistics showing like how, if you stay, how these kids will, if it's a boy, he would end up be like a father abuser, because that's what he knows. It's not their fault, because they think, okay, it's normal. If my mom could continue, it's okay. And if it's a daughter, then she has more chance of attracting, when she grows up, someone like her father who is controlling or abusing, right? So I then I was like, the onus goes on as a mother. So they need to be in a healthy environment, right? So and it's surprisingly, the kids, they love it when they are in a safe place. Doesn't matter if it's one room or a two or like a big house or a mansion or a small little suite. They need to be in a healthy atmosphere, and we see that how it changes. The child is coming. You see little behaviors, right? How they're playing with each other, or the anxiety, or always wanting to please everyone, right? So we want to start so there is like art therapy, because a lot of these kids don't know how to talk. So child, you know, so through drawing and through, so just therapy is such a huge piece of this work, right? So I think really important, and we see the difference of before and after, right? And even the moms will say, wow, you know, and I think the credit goes to those moms who make that, okay, you know, enough. I'm not gonna have my daughter or son go through this, right? So
And I'll just add to that, Nina, one of the other things in my work I realized is that for moms, all the decisions, like you said, that they wouldn't leave a relationship for the sake of the children. And they did some research at later on in years with those moms that had actually left abusive relationships, and asked them what was the factor that made you leave. And they said it was for the sake of the children.
Yes.
So moms' decisions, whether they stay in the relationship or they leave those relationships, the children are always a
Always a
factor.
priority,
And for most mothers, I think the most important thing is the child sees them as the mirror. So through agencies, through programs like Surrey Women's Center and at Harmony House, we want to empower those mothers so the children see that empowerment. And I feel that where these agencies like ours have an opportunity to support, we only have very small fraction of women accessing us. So I think the responsibility is also with the community in caring for these children by supporting the mothers. If I'm sure in our audience, someone would know a mother who's been abused, someone has maybe a neighbor, a family friend, and I think it's really reflecting, how can I empower this person? How can I empower and support her? So I think a social response like that would really address these issues.
I'm looking at the time. We wish we could sit here and talk hours about that. So let's talk let's go about prevention side. What can one do if they think that they've been abused, or maybe they can't name what's happening with them? Where can they go from here? What can they do?
So I think one of the things is, like, you know, please, if you know anyone, just refer them to a professional agency, you know, to PICS or Surrey Women's Center. That is the best you can do. A lot of time people will feel, oh, you know, like, what's the right word to say or what not to say. So you know what? I think the best thing anyone can do is just refer and let a professional talk to them, right? And we as social worker, I know this is very common, and especially in South Asian community, we're not going to come and apart the house. If the couple wants to work, great. Let us just bring you resources, right? So if it could be mental health or therapy, like anything, there is so much out there. So I think that's the best thing, of course, you know. And again, like, there are professional in each, you know, if there's a child going through some stuff in school, there are children, you know, counselors. If a woman is going through either it's depression or wants to get legal help, there are professionals who are there to support. Or even women who have already decided and they have moved on and still need ongoing support, right? So the best thing is, you know, call me, call us at Harmony House, call.
Do you have
That's
a
the easiest.
South Asian? Because some people feel very comfortable because they are not they don't want to talk to anybody about South Asian line, that they can speak to somebody that may be able to understand. So do you have anything?
Yeah, so I'm just on the side. We have done, it's an all volunteer work. It is a South Asian helpline called SAHS. And yeah, you can call that, and the number is 604-900-9212.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can get
We
some more
can put that
information,
number,
come back
yeah.
and talk a little bit more about it. And yeah, so, but even just call PICS front desk, Surrey Women front desk, Harmony House, just Google.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
it's just easy.
Yeah.
Everyone has phone now. Call
Vic-
211.
yeah.
They'll, the easiest.
Victim
right?
link,
Yeah.
and you also have a crisis line.
Exactly, and we have a crisis line 24/7, so
Yeah.
604-589-1868. And basically there will be someone, and we do have bilingual workers who
Okay.
speak South Asian, Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu,
Yeah.
that can also support.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so
And
much, Kamala.
yeah, and I know with that, December 6th is fast approaching too. So normally on that day, there are different women's organizations who have rallies, candlelight visuals and all that to remember the 14 women. So go out, participate, find out what's happening, how you can volunteer, how you can donate. There's lots of ways for people out there to be able to support the women and children who are fleeing domestic violence. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you so much, Kamala.
Before I go, I leave you with these thoughts. River does not drink its own water, trees do not eat their own fruit, and the sun doesn't shine on itself, and the flowers don't spread their fragrance on themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other, no matter how difficult it is. Life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you. Another author. If you have missed Asian Pulse, you can watch it again at Thursdays at 8:30 and Saturdays at 5:30 p.m. All our shows are also aired on our YouTube channel at Asian Pulse TV. I'm your host, Shivani Naiker. Stay safe and take care of each other. Thank you for spending the rest of the day with us.